Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
WisconsinEye coverage of the 2018 elections. We're at the Brown County Library in Green Bay, and Dan Grady of Appleton is the Democratic candidate in the 19th Senate District. The primary is August 14th. Dan, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Hi, thank you for the invitation.
Now, you say on your campaign website, we can take back Wisconsin. What specific ways does Wisconsin need to be taken back?
Well, I think we need to restore our labor rights.
Okay.
With Act 10, our public employees have been demoralized and they haven't been treated fairly. I think we need to give them back their bargaining rights and allow them to negotiate over work conditions. I think we need to bring back the prevailing wage for state and local, county, municipal. I think that we need to bring back our environmental regulations. The idea that we can just give passes on wetlands is just, it doesn't seem right to me. And then we have to stop all the corporate giveaways like Foxconn, where they promise a company that's notorious for horrible working conditions and not living to their promises. I think we need to hold them accountable, and I think we need to bring back Wisconsin to the people.
So you would overturn all of the provisions of Act 10, correct?
Yes, I would.
Okay. You're now serving on as a local elected official?
Yes, I'm on the Outagamie County Board. This is my third term, and I'm chairman of the Public Safety Committee.
And what's your background in terms of your career?
Well, I spent 4 years working for Senator Herb Kohl in his Washington, D.C. office. I have an MBA, and I have been working, I own 2 small businesses, and I'm currently an accountant for a union shop.
As a member of the Outagamie County Board, county governments and local governments and school boards have been operating under levy limits since about 2006.
Yes.
Do you think those levy limits should be eased up or done away with?
I think they, at a very minimum, they should be eased up.
Why?
I prefer to do away with them. Outagamie County has a long history of being very prudent with our tax dollars, and we've lived within the limit. But this year, we're facing a really tough budget. Healthcare costs are going up astronomically, and we need to adequately compensate our staff. We're going to be bumping our levy limit, which means that we can't fix our roads, we can't provide adequate health care to our citizens, we can't improve our parks. There's so many things that the county does that we just can't do because the levy limits are in place. I think local officials should be able to raise the funds that they need and be accountable to their local citizens.
On your website, you say that Wisconsin should take the federal Medicaid expansion. Why?
Well, I believe health care is a right for all Americans. And I believe that if we take the federal Medicaid expansion, that millions of more Wisconsinites will get access to affordable, decent coverage. And it seems only fair and only right that the people on the lowest part of the social ladder and economic ladder have access to health care. They're the most vulnerable people we have in our society, and they should be taken care of too.
Is the ultimate answer a universal health care system, Dan?
I think it probably is, yes. Yeah, I think a single payer plan of some form. I believe that Wisconsin can lead the way by offering Badger care for everyone.
Okay. Couple more questions on health care. Rural areas have unique health care needs with older populations, lower household incomes than the statewide average, more health care provided by Medicaid, Medicare. Thoughts on how to preserve rural and improve rural health care, excuse me?
Well, that's a pretty complicated issue. I think there are a number of things we can do. We can invest in telemedicine. There's a lot of people can visit the doctor that could be in Minneapolis or Madison or Milwaukee because they don't actually need a physical exam. And this is pretty true with psychiatric exams, which is a pretty big problem in northern and central Wisconsin where there are no psychiatrists. We could look at upping the reimbursement rate for Badger care. Right now, our reimbursement rates are so low that so many doctors just won't accept Badger care patients. If we're going to offer more Badger care available to more people, then we need to look at fixing the reimbursement rate so doctors will actually take those patients.
Last question on healthcare. Does the state government have a role in helping to recruit and retain more healthcare providers, especially in those areas where specialists are short?
Yes, we absolutely do. If we don't have adequate health care in the state, people aren't going to want to live in this state. You know, one of the things that young people do when they look for a job is they look for places where they can get health care, where there are good jobs, where they have amenities like parks and roads and trails. And we're lacking at that in the state. We need to fix that problem. And again, one of the ways we can fix that problem is by looking at the reimbursement rate for doctors, so they will take Medicaid and Medicare patients.
Okay. The impasse on the Capitol over how to pay for our highways, how do you think it should be broken? Would you support gas tax increase, registration fee increase, tolling, some other ideas, sir?
Well, that is a tough question too. Yeah, I think that we need to look at revenue enhancement of some sort. The very least we can do is index the gas tax. That won't do much, it's a drop in the bucket, but at least it will help. I think we can start looking for new sources of revenue. Things that we haven't thought of before, things like legalizing marijuana and using the tax proceeds to fix our roads and bridges.
Okay. So you support legalizing both medical marijuana and the recreational?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And you look at Colorado as an example. They're on track to make $300 million this year off taxes. That's $300 million that we could put on our roads, we could put into our schools, we could put into our healthcare system.
Against the backdrop of mass shootings and school shootings, do we need changes in Wisconsin gun laws, sir?
Yes, we do. And I'm in favor of common sense gun reform. I believe we need universal background checks. I believe in red flag laws. I believe in things like gun owners should have to report when their firearm is stolen. I think these are common sense solutions that don't really affect the average gun owner, but can have a huge effect on gun safety in this country and this state.
Let's talk about how we pay for our school system, K-12. Does the state allocate enough state aid to our K-12 system? Do we need to significantly increase that, sir?
Yes, I think we need to significantly increase that. We need to go back to what it was before the Walker cuts 8 years ago, and then adjust it for inflation. One of the reasons why we have a teacher shortage in this state and why our schools are falling in the rankings is because we're not supporting our schools enough. We're not able to pay teachers, we're not able to retain teachers. I mean, just 2 days ago in the New York Times, there was a story about how Arena, Wisconsin school district is closing for good. I mean, that's a death to the town. It will never rebound from that. They don't have people living there now. Nobody will ever move there because there's no school there. We need to adequately fund our schools. We need to invest in our future, and we need to invest in education.
If we need to significantly increase state aid to K-12 public schools, how would you pay for that?
Well, I think we need to look at, I really think we need to look at repealing the tax cuts that the Walker administration passed on the top 5% of state incomes and corporations. That's roughly $650 million right there that we could flow back into education.
Would you have voted against the sales tax rebates, $100 per every child under 18?
Yes, I would have. That's really more of a gimmick. It's like the governor and the legislature are trying to bribe the people into voting for them. It's not good policy, and it hurts our budget situation.
Choice or voucher schools have expanded over the last 20 years, started out in Milwaukee, then Racine, now statewide. What's your position on the choice program?
Well, I think choice schools and voucher schools, they haven't shown that they improve the educational outcomes of children. I think that it's time to end this program. We've spent 20 years in this, since the Thompson administration, on choice and voucher schools, and they don't work. As a result, our public schools are suffering. They're taking money directly away from our public schools and giving it to these charter schools. I don't see a reason why we need to support two school systems in this state. We should support one, and I support ending the vouchers.
UW system funding, we're in our 6th year of a freeze on resident undergraduate tuition. Should there be a should that freeze continue into the 7th and 8th year? Excuse the interruption.
Sure. Well, if we're going to freeze tuition, then we need to find a way to make up the revenue. Whether that comes from general purpose revenue or some other source, we still need to give the UW the money that it needs. We need to bring back the $250 million that the Walker administration took from the UW. It's hurt the school. It's hurt all of the UW schools. You know, UW used to be a top 20 school in the country, and now it's not. And it's the direct result of the cuts that the Walker administration has imposed on the UW. Meanwhile, other schools like the University of Texas, University of Virginia, University of Maryland, they're poaching our professors and our best students because of what the Walker administration's done. We need to reinvest in our K-12 and our UW.
The prison decisions in the next budget will be big ones. We're closing the 2 juvenile prisons. The prison in Green Bay and Waupun were both built in the 1800s. Do we need a new state prison, Dan?
As chairman of the Public Safety Committee in Outagamie County, I've been working very hard to keep people out of jail. You know, Outagamie County has a great record on diversion programs. We have drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts. We have programs in place so people can get treatment instead of being put in the jail. I think the state needs to look at Outagamie County as a model and stop putting people in jail. If we do that, we don't need to build a prison. We can use what we have, keep people out of jail, keep them from having a criminal record, and letting them lead productive lives.
Dozens of bills have been passed on our opioid, methamphetamine, and heroin epidemic. Thoughts on any next steps, especially since you chair the Public Safety Committee?
Well, the opioid epidemic is not just a Wisconsin problem. It's a national problem. You know, other states have been hit much harder by this. I think part of the solution, again, is legalizing marijuana. Marijuana is a substitute for opiates. People use it for pain, and it's not addictive. I believe that if we do that, we can keep people from moving from things like Vicodin to going straight to heroin. I think if we allow people to invest it and look at and use other forms of medication, then they won't move to harder forms of opioids. And I think we also need to look at enforcement action against distributors and drugstores who are not adequately policing their business. Recently, about 6 months ago, 60 Minutes ran a story on the Washington Post about a pharmacy in West Virginia that was literally giving out more prescriptions 20 times or something, if memory serves, than the actual population of the county. All that's doing is feeding the drug epidemic. I think the Department of Justice needs to closely monitor pharmacies that are having abnormal orders of prescription pills, and I think they need to prosecute them. I think if we do that, and other reforms like reforming marijuana, we can make a real dent in the opioid epidemic.
When you knock on doors in the 19th Senate District, what are you hearing as the top 1 or 2 issues, sir?
Infrastructure.
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 Transportation, highways, bridges, things like that?
It's really infrastructure that I'm hearing the most about. That and education. People are and you hear, third would be environment. You hear a lot of people complaining about the roads. The roads are horrible in our state. Anybody who lives in the eastern part of the state, in Dane County, they suffer from orange barrel syndrome. They see orange barrel after orange barrel after orange barrel. It feels like the construction is never ending. And that's because we're not adequately funding our transportation system. We keep partially funding programs, so they never get finished. And then the cost keeps going up and up and up and up. We need to come up, as we spoke earlier, with a funding solution so we can fix our roads and make them safer and usable by our people.
And when they say they have environmental concerns, do you share those concerns? And if so, what are your concerns on the environment?
Well, I think the biggest concern I've heard is the wetlands bills. People are very upset that we're allowing corporations like Foxconn to just destroy our wetlands that can never be replaced. I mean, man-made wetlands are okay, but they're not the same thing as natural-made ones. So many plants, so many animals, so many birds, so many insects, everything really rely on the wetlands as a source of life. And we need to preserve that. Now, I'm a hunter and I'm a fisher. And if we didn't have wetlands, the deer population wouldn't be as high, the turkey population wouldn't be exploding, we wouldn't be able to hunt pheasants, and our fishing wouldn't be as good.
Okay.
I mean, wetlands are a natural filter of water.
You've mentioned more than $4 billion in state and local incentives and other breaks for Foxconn twice. Elaborate on your opposition to that deal.
Well, as I said earlier, Foxconn is notorious for their horrible labor practices. And they are so bad that even people in China won't work at Foxconn. They've lied. They've broken so many promises to so many countries, to so many states. What makes us think that they're going to keep their promise to Wisconsin? And what are they bringing us? $12 an hour jobs? That's not really how you make Wisconsin grow. You make Wisconsin grow by bringing good jobs, good paying union jobs, where we're building roads, where we're enabling public infrastructure to be built. Foxconn is just not good for Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I don't expect that they'll ever live up to their promises. And meanwhile, we have people in the Pleasant Prairie area whose houses are being stolen from them via eminent domain, just so Foxconn can be built. It's not right. It's not fair.
And then finally, you're involved in a primary on August 14th. Do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent in that primary, sir?
Well, first off, my primary opponent, I like my primary opponent. She's a friend of mine, and I wish her luck. I think the biggest difference between the two of us is experience. My primary opponent has never been elected to office. Meanwhile, I worked for Herb Kohl for 4 years in Washington, D.C. As an activist, I was able to get the only bill through the state legislature following Act 10. And
the issue?
That was homebrewing.
Home brewing?
Yeah, homebrewing.
Okay. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, what the bill did was, before that bill, it was illegal for me to literally take a homebrewed beer and hand it over to my neighbor. And we changed that law so people could transport their homebrew and they could bring it into licensed establishments.
You sound like you're a brewer. Home brewer?
Yes, I am.
You are? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But it was the only bipartisan bill that passed the legislature following Act 10.
Okay.
And I've been on the county board now for 5 years. I have experience. I understand how things work, how to get things done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Dan Grady of Appleton is a Democratic candidate in the 19th Senate District. The primary is August 14th. Dan, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.